Hello, and welcome to We Remember, our annual Remembrance Day special. Remembrance Day is incredibly meaningful to many Canadians, a continued tradition to honor those who have fallen in battle and selflessly sacrificed their lives for the freedom of our citizens and our country. To start things off today, I had a chance to sit down with Vice President of the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 43, John Scott, to discuss the importance of this day. I'm joined now by John Scott, Vice President of the Legion Branch number 43.
That's correct.
John, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to do this and speak with us. It's really an honor.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Obviously, some exciting times going on for the Legion with the Remembrance Day ceremony coming up. I wanted to start here. Maybe just could you briefly speak about your career in the military?
Well, I joined at 16 years of age. I was an apprentice soldier. So I spent 2 years in Shiloh there as an apprentice, and then I was posted to Winnipeg, and I spent to our CHA there actually. I spent a couple of years there, posted back to Shiloh. Spent most of my career actually in Shiloh. Went over to Europe and did Germany. I remustered while I was in Europe to as a REME as an electromechanic. So then I retraded and everything, and then I ended up in Cyprus. Did 6 months in Cyprus, and then I got out in after 18 years.
Can you speak a little bit about what this day means to veterans all across the country?
Well, I mean it's a big thing for veterans. Veterans, it talks about our service. It talks about remembrance, and that's why they call it Remembrance Day. Is we've lost so many really good citizens, good men from Canada. A lot of them lie in foreign soil, and this is a way of remembering them.
Now, obviously, it's the first ceremony, the first big in-person event that's been held since COVID-19.
Yes.
What do you guys have in store?
Well, we're quite excited. We're doing our ceremony in the Civic Center as we used to do before COVID, and that was all stopped. So that we're going to have the Civic Center ceremony, then we'll have a parade, and we didn't really have much of a parade over that, so we're going to have the parade and do this, the big ceremony at the city cenotaph.
What do you think it's going to mean to the community to have the in-person event back?
Oh, I think they'll be excited. I think we'll probably have a large turnout. We've always had a large turnout for the Remembrance Day Parade and for the Remembrance Service. I know the Civic Center has always been packed, and we do the Civic Center service for kids because what this is about is remembrance and about teaching that war is not a good thing, and we want to prevent war. So we want them to see what war is about and move them on in a better place, which is really important in this day because you look what's going on in between Russia
and Ukraine.
And
right?
Ukraine, yes.
Now, I wanted to ask about sort of how veterans have been experiencing the pandemic, because you work with veterans.
Yes.
Quite a lot, correct? How hard has it been being isolated? I mean, I know that a lot of veterans, a lot part of what the work that Legions do is to bring people together and have a support system. And how difficult has that been for veterans to deal with this pandemic?
Well, it's been hard on veterans. I mean, you've been stuck at home, and maybe it's good. You're stuck at home with your wife, and you relearn to get along with your wife. But no, it has been hard for some veterans. I'm the service officer for Branch 43, and I've held a few veterans. Surprisingly, I didn't get a whole lot of calls for help from veterans. They seem to actually do pretty well. Because, as you know, we've got a lot of homeless veterans, and one of the things they want to do is be left alone.
Now, from your experience, from the work you've been doing, I mean, do you think that that having this back is sort of, I guess, symbolic of coming together again? Like, how do you
Yes.
think it's going to positively affect the people that you work with?
Well, like I say, it's exciting. We're going to be seeing veteran friends, and this is a brotherhood, you know. So we get to see veterans that we've known for a long time. We get to see new veterans coming in. We're all the time we're getting younger veterans from Afghanistan and various wars, and they're becoming acclimated to working with the Legion. And what we're about, of course, is remembrance and teaching that war is not a good thing, and telling people the true story.
Now, you mentioned sort of the younger generation. Where do you see organizations like Legions and events like Remembrance Day ceremonies? Like, let's go 20 years down the line. Do you think that there needs to be sort of a bridging of the gap to the younger generation? Like, what is being done to sort of bring younger veterans into this brotherhood so that these wonderful traditions can live on 20, 30, 40 years down the line, and people can have the same support that you've experienced in your experience as a veteran?
Yes, you're correct. I mean, the Legion has been losing members for a number of years. In the last couple of years, we've actually started to pick up membership again, and that's good to hear that membership is starting to improve, and we're getting the younger veterans in, and of course we have civilians in, and they're very important to us because when the Legion was started, it was done by all veterans. It was a solid veterans club, but as they aged out, less and less veterans were required, we're in the wars, and my age, we really didn't have a war throughout my whole career. We had, we visited war sites, we looked after like places like Cyprus and whatnot, but so there wasn't as many veterans as such. So the Legion has allowed civilians to come in, and they do a tremendous job for us, and they have kept this veterans organization alive. The younger veterans are now starting to come in, and we're hoping that they will start to take the senior positions in the Legion and start leading the Legion for the way they want to see it run. And we're open to that. We want that to happen. Like I said, I'm turning 80. I've had my time. I would love to see a young person sitting in my seat.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's certainly important because, as you said, these traditions, they're so meaningful, and we're certainly happy to have them back in person. Before I let you go, I have to ask, it's a wonderful display of medals. Could you briefly talk about, what all these medals mean on your jacket here? Okay,
well, the ones you see on this side are Legion medals, and they're for what I accomplished in the Legion, and from when I started till today, and the various positions I've held. Like I'm a zone commander right now. I was on BC Yukon Command. And I held various positions in this branch, and you get a medal for so many years doing that as a chairman of a committee. These ones are my medals for my service. These are my service medals, and of course this one is for service in NATO, service in Cyprus. This one here is actually the peacekeepers got a Nobel Peace Prize. So Canada made a medal for it rather than try to give them each a Peace Prize. So that's what this actually represents. And this is a Queen's Medal, my years of service, 12 years of service, and of course I got a medal for good citizenship from the province. So that's where my medals are.
That's so impressive. John, thank you so much again. It's been an honor. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us and to give us your perspective, and we're certainly excited, as I'm sure you are, to have the in-person Remembrance Day ceremony back again. So it's quite exciting.
Awesome. Yes, we are excited too. So we're looking forward to it.
Thanks again, John.
Thank you.
Canadian veterans come from a vast number of backgrounds, and the younger generation of veterans is the most recent group to experience the horrors of war firsthand.
The younger generation of veterans encompasses a wide array of men and women, and Derek Rutten is one of them. Derek was with the Royal Netherlands Army from 1994 to the early 2000s and served in Bosnia.
So I actually served 2 tours, 2 times 6 months. First time I was there, I was just 18, and it was 6 months in a row, and then I came back, and then we rotated in again a year later. So I was just turned almost 20, I think, when I had my second tour.
Derek believes that the understanding of mental health in the forces has improved, but is still stigmatized.
Over the last 10 years, we might have opened up a little, but we're always been taught like not to show your emotions in that sense, right? So keep it into yourself. So it's not only a stigma for people looking into the military, but it's also still inside the military where I feel like it needs a little more progression for that to open up.
This Remembrance Day, Dirk will be doing something special to remember his fallen friends and all veterans.
I wanted to do something physical. So I've been trying to find an opportunity in a good time and place to go for a run on that day, just to remember. So what we're doing now is we have an in-person group run on the 11th at 2 a.m. in the morning, and there's also a virtual window to run the 11 kilometers throughout the day.
Cameron TETREAULT served as a corporal in Afghanistan between 2005 and 2006 and remembers well what it was like arriving in Kandahar.
The first thing that I remember, and it's like forged into my brain, was the heat. You open the door of the Herc and you step off the ramp, and it was just like something hit you. It was temperatures that I was definitely not used to. So there were some days that were up to like plus 57 because I was in the turret, always in the sun, and then I had my body armor on, and then I also had my weapon systems and my magazines and frags, everything that belongs into battle order. And so it was like getting cooked in the sun constantly.
After arriving home from deployment, adjusting to life back in Canada was tough.
When I got diagnosed with PTSD, I was medically released out of the Canadian Armed Forces, and from there, that's where it kind of took a turn because you lose your sense of identity, right? When I joined the military, it was like my only part of my identity. So when I got medically released, it felt like it was a nasty divorce that, it was life-changing. And trying to amalgamate into a different position was a hard transition.
Through it all, Cameron had the help of his wife and family to get him where he is today. A father, owning a coffee company, and dedicated to supporting other veterans. Behind me on this cenotaph are the names of those who fought bravely for this country. But what you won't find on the cenotaph are the stories of those who fought. Stories and sacrifices that will forever be embedded into our country. We will remember them. Adam Burles, CKPG News.
The men and women that make up the Rocky Mountain Rangers are as diverse and rugged as the communities they come from humble beginnings as a grouping of local rifle companies to a modern-day military reserve with a long history of service. Nathan Jordan visited Meadows Armory to get to know the unit and meet some of their local veterans.
The Rocky Mountain Rangers trains reserve infantry soldiers out of Kamloops and Prince George, and the men and women of Bravo Company who serve locally out of Meadows Armory are true Northern British Columbians through and through. Officer in command, Captain Eric DEAPENU, is known in Villemont as the Chief Administrative and Corporate Officer of the village. Joining the military reserve, alongside the public service, was just in his nature, as he's constantly seeking to strengthen and uplift his community and keeps a vigilant watch over those in his care.
I was a firefighter, and one of our friends, one of our crew members, joined the reserve force. And first time I saw him in uniform, I said, that's something that I want to do. And so I filled out the paperwork over a lunch hour and found myself moving to Prince George. Basic training right here out of this building in the Chilcotin training area in Williams Lake, and then into Wainwright, Alberta for trades training with the infantry. Eventually commissioned from the ranks, a chance to deploy twice domestically for op laser around COVID relief and preparation for the government of Canada, and also to serve as the diplomatic administration officer in Kuwait for a period of time.
Sergeant Kevin Gaiske has always had an interest in the human side of his community. Starting his military career nearly a decade ago, Sergeant Gaiske has proven himself a strong leader and effective educator over his years of service. In the unit recruiter's chair, he's helped many local men and women find their way within the Canadian Forces, just like he once did.
So a lot of what I'll do on a day-to-day basis is build training plans so that the soldiers get the required training they need to potentially augment the reg force, but also keep their skills, drills kind of sharp. I've deployed on Op-Lentis a few times, so just to fight the fires and the floods, as well as Op-Laser and Vector. Most recently, I deployed on Op-Unifier to help train the Ukrainians.
Master Corporal Joshua Nelson is a sectional second in command. The economic downturn of 2008 sparked a series of events that saw him serve 6 years with the 2nd PPCLI in Shiloh, Manitoba, before deploying to Afghanistan and continuing to serve in the primary reserve as a mentor to young privates and corporals.
As a young man, I didn't really have a direction that I really wanted to go into. That's why I tried doing a few different jobs, working construction, working security. I saw a really good ad for infantry soldiers on the Canadian Armed Forces website. I thought it looked cool and thought, what's the harm in throwing it in an application? And well, honestly, luckily for me, it helped put me onto a direction that really shaped me into the person that I am today. So I was deployed on Op Attention in 2013. I was part of a force protection platoon that was tasked with providing security for Canadian doctors and nurses that were providing medical school program training to Afghan counterparts so that they, in an attempt to make them self-sufficient to be able to train their own doctors and nurses.
The Rocky Mountain Rangers have a long and storied past. With humble beginnings as independent militias and rifle companies from Kamloops in the south, north to Prince George and west to Terrace and Prince Rupert, the men and women that comprise the Rangers are as rugged and diverse as the communities they come from, serving king, queen, and country in conflicts as far back as the 1800s, during both World Wars, through to the modern day. We honor their service, and we will remember them. Nathan Jordan, CKPG News.
Animals have always played a major role on the fronts and conflicts throughout history, from horses to elephants to even camels, and they're still being used in conflicts today.
Some of the unsung heroes of war are of the four-legged and feathered variety. Animals have been used in war for hundreds of years and still are today.
Animals played an important role in all wars, really, of the 20th century and before. In the First World War, you saw millions of animals of all sorts of different backgrounds, types, being used for military service. People often think of horses, but there were also pack mules, camels, elephants. Dogs and cats were used frequently in the trenches to keep the vermin down.
In fact, over 16 million animals served in the First World War when both sides of the conflict had large cavalries. While camels and elephants were frequently used in desert conflicts, the use of cavalry horses on the Western Front was not ideal, where conditions were much challenging. At the start of the Second World War, in fact, much of the German forces were horsebound.
You see bears being adopted by battalions as their mascots. I think not a lot of people know that Winnie the Pooh was the mascot of the Royal Winnipeg Rifles and was left in the London Zoo, where he was discovered by Christopher Robin.
Remarkably, one of the most often used animals was the pigeon as a means of getting messages to and from the front.
Pigeons were very important for conveying messages, and actually they were used in both wars, but mainly in the First World War because of the lack of reliability of wireless and wired communications in the trenches. In fact, one pigeon in the fighting at Verdun was awarded the French Legion of Honor for its service in getting a critical message through just in the nick of time.
200,000 pigeons were used in World War II, but not everyone is in favor of using animals in conflict. Jordan Reichert is with the Animal Alliance of Canada and recently launched the Purple Poppy campaign, which is now in its 7th year.
Millions of animals died during the First World War, not only on the battlefront, but of course in Britain they killed about 750,000 domestic animals to conserve rations. Countless wildlife are lost. That doesn't include all the animals that are used in training, like we still do here in Canada.
But even today, animals are used on the fronts.
It's not always the case that something with wheels is able to get through very difficult terrain. People rely also on helicopters to navigate difficult ground, but sometimes you've got to get down there on the ground, and animals are the best way to help you navigate that.
Cheryl Jan, CKPG News.
Now, what some people don't know is that many veterans play sports to remain active and stay in shape. Anthony Correa had a chance to sit down with one veteran with quite the impressive sports trophy case, all earned while serving his country.
When Bruce Gabriel joined the service, he also had the intention of keeping active, which led him to playing many sports with his fellow veterans.
When I joined the military, I first started off with basic training. All the guys, you had to box. You had a squad of 30-some men, and everybody boxed off. And it wasn't about winning and losing, it was representing your guys, and no one cared about it. They scored it and everything. And then once I went to the new unit, the Black Watch, and then I had an interest in, so I got on the boxing team.
Gabriel says he always had a love for sports, and it's always been a skill of his. He's glad he could bring that with him to the military.
One of the things I had going in all the sports I played, I was a terrific fast runner, so speed played a big part in everything I did, so it really helped me in all those areas. And
one of Gabriel's most favorite trophies is the one presented to him in appreciation of his athletic contribution during his military service.
And even my retirement was presented by the direct staff from Baldy Hughes. They questioned me when they knew about me, my history in the military sports and the various things I did. So I was presented with that. It was quite a surprise.
Gabriel played all sorts of sports from baseball to boxing, but the sports helped keep his and other veterans' minds off the terrible scenes and actions going on.
Well, it was good because it wasn't always just the military training. Like, sports was a good outlet, but when we did it, like, you had to be very serious. Like, you couldn't goof off. You went out there and you always did your best. And some of the hard training we did was, like, I played soccer as well, and we had a Scotchman, and he trained us very hard.
Gabriel is still involved with the community and Legion. He remembers the involvement when the Canada Winter Games were held here back in 2015.
I know when we had the games there, the Winter Games, and they wanted someone to do the run. And they called me, I was president of the Legion, and could you recommend someone for the carry the flag? I said, yeah. They said, who? I said, me.
Despite all his hardware, Gabriel knows it doesn't matter, but he can always look back and remember all the good times with his teammates and fellow veterans.
We had a big special event, and that was a team trophy. That was military, but we had a track and field meet, and I was the captain, and I won about 5 or 6 events, and I was supposed to get presented that trophy by myself. They came to me and said, do you mind if we put these other guys in? It's Bill Laird and Charlie Quinlan, 2 of my favorite people, and this is Prince Philip. He was the colonel-in-chief of our regiment. It was pretty special. And we didn't realize at the time how valuable it was, not in terms of money or anything, but just to get to shake his hand was pretty special.
That's all for now. Thank you so much for joining us. And for all of us at CKPG News, we remember.